The series begins with a famous police detective named Ramy, who works in the anti-corruption division. One day, after finishing work, he heads to his car, only to find it completely wrecked. Shocked and furious, he starts shouting, calling out the security guard and demanding to know who the animal was that did this to his car. He insists on checking the security cameras to find out who the culprit is. The shocking twist? The person who destroyed Ramy's car is Ramy himself. When he sees the footage, he is utterly speechless. He has no memory of doing it or why. The next day, Ramy returns to work and refuses to park his car in the garage, instead leaving it in front of the police station where he can keep an eye on it. Upon entering, he encounters his ex-girlfriend, Sarah, who is also a detective but works in the narcotics division. The moment she sees him, she berates him for investigating her boss. She insists he did nothing wrong, but Ramy coldly replies, "It's my job. Stay out of it." As he turns to leave, she grabs him, humiliating him in front of everyone as a warning to treat her with respect next time. Later, Ramy and his assistant interrogate the head of the narcotics unit, the same man Sarah had defended. They question him about the death of his assistant, who had fallen from a tall building. The officer recounts how someone pushed his assistant off the edge, and when he arrived at the scene, the killer jumped off as well. He blames himself for not saving him. Ramy, skeptical, asks for evidence proving that the killer pushed the assistant and then took his own life. He subtly hints that since the officer was the only witness, he himself might be responsible for both deaths. The officer is stunned and asks, "Are you accusing me?" Ramy responds, "No, I'm certain." Meanwhile, senior officers observe the interrogation, praising Ramy's skills. After wrapping up the case, Ramy decides to relax in a sauna. Just as he's unwinding, a man wearing a red helmet enters. Ramy, confused, mutters, "Am I dreaming?" When he asks the stranger who he is, the man suddenly attacks him, slamming him into the ground. He drags Ramy by the hair, beating him mercilessly before dragging him into the bathroom, wrapping a rope around his neck, and submerging him in water. After nearly drowning him, the attacker throws Ramy into a swimming pool and walks away, leaving him gasping for air, completely clueless about what just happened. Meanwhile, a newly appointed police detective named Ty is walking through the streets when he comes across a little girl searching for her missing mother. He decides to help and takes her to the police station. However, upon arrival, he finds that someone has already reported her missing. The officer in charge of the case, Inspector Han, tells Ty that the woman is a runaway, a troubled drug addict with a criminal past. Ty takes the girl home, and along the way, she tells him that she lived in America before returning, and that the last time she spoke to her mother, she had promised her a birthday present. Ty reassures her that he'll find her mother. Before entering the house, the girl gives him a small leaf as a gift, telling him, "Next time I'll make you a bracelet." He smiles, touched by the gesture. Meanwhile, Ramy, still recovering from the attack, is invited by a colleague to his daughter's birthday party. He promises to be the first guest to arrive. Ty continues investigating the missing woman, visiting the apartment building where she lived. He asks the security guard if he knows anything, but the man, irritated, claims he doesn't remember and refuses to help. Frustrated, Ty questions the neighbors, one of whom reveals that the missing woman lived right across from her. She is shocked to learn that she is now considered missing. Ty knocks on the door of the woman's apartment but gets no response. He calls someone to unlock the door and, just as they enter, the security guard suspiciously makes a phone call. Inside, the apartment is empty except for numerous photos of the woman and her daughter. When Ty enters the bathroom, he smells something strange and is horrified to find blood-soaked hair. At that moment, Inspector Han arrives and, after seeing the blood, unexpectedly attacks Ty. He punches and kicks him before shoving him into the bathtub, warning him to stay out of the case. It's clear that something much bigger is going on. The next day, Ramy meets with an important political figure, a member of parliament who also happens to be Inspector Han's cousin. Ramy is there to gain his favor and secure a promotion. The politician tells Ramy that they need to take care of Han's situation, referring to the attack on Inspector Ty. Ramy reassures him, "Consider it done." He then takes his assistant and heads to meet Ty to find out what really happened. As soon as Ty sees Ramy, he notices that his face is scratched up. He begins telling him about Yona and the missing woman, but Ramy interrupts, questioning why he's even bothering with the case since it's not his responsibility. "You're in the wrong here," Ramy says dismissively. Ty, however, insists that he made a promise to the woman's little daughter to bring her mother back. Ramy scoffs, saying, "What, did she play you so you'd take the case?" Ty then tells him about the blood he found in the woman's bathroom and takes Ramy there to show him, but to their shock, the blood has disappeared. Ramy decides to meet with Han to get some answers. When he arrives, Han greets him with arrogance and superiority. Ramy, unfazed, warns him, "You better show me some respect. I outrank you. Speak to me properly unless you want to be humiliated." Meanwhile, Ty continues investigating and returns to Yona's apartment. There, he finds the birthday gift that Yona had bought for her daughter. Suddenly, Yona's housemaid enters the apartment and is startled to see Ty. She tells him that she had heard strange noises coming from the apartment a while ago. As Ty listens, Yona suddenly enters the bathroom, rips her clothes, and injures herself, framing Ty for assault. He is now falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit. The next day, Ramy interrogates the woman and quickly realizes she's lying. Someone must have put her up to this. He immediately calls Han and mocks him, saying, "Next time get someone who can act better because this one is absolutely terrible." He hangs up and files an official report against Han. That night, Ramy is at home when he suddenly finds himself standing in his bathroom, which is now covered in blood. He sees blood smeared across the mirror. Before he can react, the mysterious figure chasing him appears again and beats him viciously. Ramy tries to escape, but the attacker steals his motorcycle and speeds off. Desperate, Ramy chases after him on foot, running as fast as he can. He screams after the figure, "I swear on my mother, I won't let you go." The two continue their chase until, suddenly, Ramy wakes up. It was just a dream. Or was it? Meanwhile, Ty goes back to Yona's apartment for the third time, but finds it full of workers. Surprising him, he searches for the little girl's teddy bear and finally finds it. At the same time, Ramy attends his colleague's daughter's birthday party, where he spots a teddy bear identical to the missing girl's. As he looks at it, the politician hosting the party suddenly recalls the moment he killed Yona. He had murdered her because she was having an affair with him. Back with Ty, he finds a hidden memory card inside the teddy bear. He immediately contacts Han to report it. Han, realizing the danger, tries to snatch the memory card from Ty, but Ty quickly puts it in his mouth. Han is forced to pry it out by force, beating Ty until he can't move. Then, to cover his tracks, Han douses the apartment in gasoline and sets it on fire, leaving Ty to burn. Meanwhile, Ramy is once again ambushed by his relentless attacker. This time, the mysterious man drags Ramy to Ty's burning apartment. Miraculously, both manage to escape. Don't ask how, it's like something out of a Bollywood movie. Just as they think they're safe, the attacker jumps down after them, revealing his face at last. He laughs maniacally, giving off the aura of a complete madman, then disappears into the night. The police soon arrive and take Ty to the hospital. The next morning, Ramy wakes up in the hospital to find his superior berating him. "Acting brave now, huh? Jumping from the 17th floor like an idiot," she yells at him. Ramy, still groggy, starts remembering everything and wonders if it was all a dream or reality. He then goes to check on Ty, only to find him in a coma. Meanwhile, Han takes the memory card from the teddy bear and delivers it to the politician. They watch the footage, expecting something critical, but it only shows Yona happily celebrating her daughter's birthday. Frustrated, the politician snaps, realizing all their efforts were pointless. Ramy, growing more suspicious of his own mind, visits a psychiatrist and explains that he is being stalked by someone who only he seems to see. The doctor dismisses it as hallucinations, prescribing him sleeping pills and tranquilizers to take the next time he sees the mysterious man. The next day, Ramy is walking when he coincidentally runs into the little girl whose mother is missing. She is arguing with a security guard who is trying to take down her mother's missing poster. Feeling sorry for her, Ramy takes her to eat and listens as she shares more about what happened. She then hands him a photograph and asks him to give it to Inspector Ty, saying, "I promised I'd give it to him." Determined, Ramy goes to the police station and demands access to surveillance footage from the neighborhood where Yona lived. As they review the footage, they spot a suspicious car parked outside Yona's house. They track the car using GPS and follow its trail. Upon reaching the location, they find the car but discover it's empty. Nearby, they notice a house and decide to investigate. Inside, they find a man and ask about the car's owner, but he claims he doesn't know anything. Ramy goes upstairs, but as soon as he does, the man seizes the opportunity, steals a motorcycle, and speeds off. Ramy searches the house and finds a horrifying discovery: human remains. He rushes them to the forensic lab for identification. The doctor requests a DNA sample from Yona's family. Ramy takes the doctor to Yona's home, collects the sample, and leaves. As they're leaving, Yona's daughter stops him. "Hey, when is my mom coming back? If she's dead, just tell me," she pleads. Ramy hesitates before replying, "We don't know yet, but we'll tell you when we do." She begs him to bring her mother back as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the police arrive at Ty's apartment to investigate the fire and find a knife covered in Yona's blood, with Ty's fingerprints on it. Just like that, Ty is framed for Yona's murder. We all know the real culprit, Inspector Han, who is trying to get rid of Ty for good. Ramy later visits Ty and receives a call from the forensic doctor. The results confirm that the remains belong to Yona. She is dead. He looks at Ty, still in a coma, and says, "You were right about this case all along." That night, Ramy meets Sarah, who gets into his car. She tells him the entire police force is in chaos because they found a knife with Yona's blood on it, and everyone now believes Ty is her killer. Ramy refuses to believe it. Sarah then reveals that Yona was actually an undercover informant working for the politician. She shows Ramy a necklace and tells him, "This has a hidden camera. Yona always wore it." Realizing the necklace could contain crucial evidence, Ramy heads home. But as he enters the elevator, the lights suddenly go out, and it stops moving. He calls for emergency help, but no one responds. Then, out of nowhere, his stalker appears inside the elevator, jumping up and down like a lunatic until the elevator crashes down. The attacker then drags Ramy onto a motorcycle, forcing him to drive at full speed. Ramy's heart pounds as the speed reaches terrifying levels. Finally, they arrive at a house, which turns out to belong to a drug cartel connected to Yona's murder. Inside, the gang members are fighting among themselves. The stalker, who brought Ramy there, jumps into the fight, effortlessly beating them all while Ramy watches in disbelief. Amid the chaos, Ramy sneaks upstairs and discovers boxes full of jewelry. By pure luck, he finds Yona's necklace, the one Sarah had told him about. He takes it and escapes. Back at his home, Ramy opens the necklace and finds a hidden memory card. The footage on it reveals the truth. The politician is the one who killed Yona, and the cartel helped cover it up. The next day, Ramy stands by the Nile, contemplating what to do. If he hands the evidence to the police, it will lead to a massive scandal. Just as he is about to throw the necklace into the river, his stalker appears again, snatching it at the last second. Ramy chases after him, but the stalker tricks him, wrecks his car, and stands before him, wearing the same red helmet as before. Ramy, exhausted and frustrated, demands, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The stalker smirks and replies, "I'm the hero." Then, without warning, he jumps off the bridge. The next day, Ramy is still in shock from everything happening around him. Who is this lunatic? He wonders. He goes to work as usual, but after finishing his shift, he heads to the restroom. Suddenly, he comes face to face with the mysterious madman again. Instinctively, Ramy runs, but the madman chases after him. As Ramy watches, he realizes the madman is heading straight for the corrupt politician, the real killer. Ramy follows closely, curious to see what will happen. Without hesitation, the madman lunges at the politician, delivering a powerful kick straight to his head, and that's when the shocking truth is revealed. The insane figure is none other than Ramy himself. Yes, Ramy and the madman are the same person. The irony is that while everyone sees him as a lunatic, he is actually the only one fighting for justice. The only person aware of this dual identity is Ramy himself. After regaining control of his mind, Ramy mutters, "What the hell have I done?" Furious and confused, he sees his alter ego standing before him again and loses it. He charges at the figure like a madman, drawing the attention of his co-workers who chase after him. When he finally catches up to his hallucination, he demands, "What do you want from me?" His colleagues witness the bizarre scene. Ramy, in a full breakdown, appears to be handcuffing himself. They rush to restrain him, but he manages to escape and calls his ex, Sarah, for help. She arrives and frees him from the handcuffs, and he hurriedly tells her that he found the missing necklace, the one she had shown him in the photo. Sarah stares at him, bewildered. Are you insane? You were the one who found it in the first place. You even told me you watched the video and learned the politician was the murderer. Ramy stammers, trying to change the subject to hide the fact that he is losing his mind. Where's your car? Let me show you the video, he says. He takes her to his apartment and frantically searches for the necklace, but it's gone. Instead, he finds a box belonging to his mysterious alter ego. Inside, he discovers photos of Sarah. Why do you have a picture of me? She demands. Ramy, now visibly distressed, says nothing. Realizing the necklace was stolen near the river, Ramy takes Sarah back to the location where the madman had snatched it from him. So what now? What's your plan? Sarah asks, exasperated. Ramy doesn't respond. He simply strips off his clothes and dives into the water to search for the necklace himself. Sarah watches, utterly stunned. He's officially lost it, she mutters before leaving. Afterward, Ramy visits his mother at her restaurant, where she has prepared food for him. As he eats, he suddenly notices something shocking. His mother is wearing the missing necklace. Meanwhile, the corrupt politician meets with Han's cousin and slaps him across the face. You let the body's remains get discovered. Now they're suspecting me. Enraged, the politician kicks him to the ground, humiliating him, then drags him to a fish tank and forces his face underwater as punishment. Ramy, meanwhile, keeps hallucinating his alter ego. Every time he sees him, he takes a sedative, which momentarily makes the visions disappear. That night, Sarah arrives at Ramy's apartment, knocking on the door. When he doesn't respond, she opens the door and finds him deeply asleep. She slaps him across the face, yelling, "Wake up!" Groggy and confused, Ramy mumbles, "Who are you?" She laughs mockingly. "Who am I? Is someone else hitting you or what?" Still half asleep, he asks, "Where did he go?" "Who? You've lost your mind," she says. She then sits down with him and tells him she found the necklace. Ramy immediately grabs it and plays the video stored inside. Sarah is left speechless by what she sees. Ramy then heads back to the gang's hideout, remembering how the madman had previously attacked him there. He wants to verify if the jewelry he saw before is still there, but when he searches, he finds nothing. Meanwhile, Ty remains in the hospital, recovering. Han visits him, not out of concern, but to eliminate him once and for all. Just as Han prepares to strike, Ramy arrives at the hospital in time to stop him. "It's best if you and your cousin turn yourselves in," Ramy warns, "because I've got the evidence I need." At night, Ramy visits an old friend who gives him a surprise birthday celebration. While taking a shower, Ramy has a flashback to his childhood, remembering a time when he celebrated his birthday with his best friend. In the memory, his friend's mother let him call her Mom because his own mother had passed away. Later, Ramy meets with his friend again. The friend reassures him, "Don't worry, I kept your stuff safe." Ramy, confused, asks, "What stuff?" His friend takes him to his shop and shows him a locked box. As Ramy stares at it, he recalls the last time he had it, during the gang fight. However, back then, it wasn't him. It was his alter ego, the madman. Deep down, Ramy knows he suffers from a split personality disorder, but no one dares to tell him, out of concern for his fragile mental state. And speaking of fragile mental states, don't forget to like and subscribe to support my effort in bringing you this insane story. Meanwhile, the politician meets with the drug cartel leader. She invites him to a meal, but when she arrives at the meeting spot, she is ambushed and brutally attacked. She calls the politician and says, "The job is done, boss. Everything's under control. Come see for yourself if you don't believe me." Satisfied, the politician goes to confirm, and indeed, everything seems perfect. On the other hand, Ramy arrives at the police station, where he finds that the politician has stolen his file and is about to get him fired. Later, the politician even goes to Ramy's mother's restaurant and destroys it. Devastated, Ramy receives a call from the politician, who tells him, "Come see me now." He sends him the location. When Ramy arrives, he finds the politician indulging in excess, almost as if he had invited the devil himself to party with him. He forces Ramy to sit down and acts smug, treating the whole thing as a joke. Surprisingly, Ramy apologizes. "I'm sorry. I won't interfere again. This was the last time." He even hands over the necklace, saying, "I swear this is the end." The politician smirks. "I'll forgive you. But just leave." Ramy leaves immediately. Better to escape now before things escalate. He enters the bathroom feeling guilty and disgusted by everything that has happened. Then, his phone rings. It's Ty. He has woken up from his coma and escaped the hospital. "Someone's after me." Ty says, panting. Han tried to kill me, but I managed to get away. I'm in hiding. Ty reveals that before Han tried to kill him, he overheard an important conversation. Han's cousin, the politician, is the real murderer. Ty has proof, a secret audio recording of the politician confessing. Ty begs Ramy to help him bring the criminal to justice. He even provides the exact location where the politician is hiding. Ramy immediately rushes to Ty's location and takes him to a safe house. Furious, he scolds him, "Do you have a death wish? Of all people, you had to challenge him?" Just then, the politician calls Ramy. "Bring Ty to me," he orders. Without hesitation, Ramy does exactly that, bringing Ty straight to the politician. Ty is shocked and betrayed. "I trusted you, and this is what you do to me?" To make matters worse, Ramy hands over the audio recording that proves the politician is the killer. The politician laughs and then grabs a baton, mercilessly beating Ty until he collapses, bleeding heavily. But here's the twist, dear viewers. This was all part of a carefully orchestrated plan by Ramy, Ty, and their ally. The politician confesses, admitting that he killed Yona. As he speaks, the police storm in, alongside Ramy, and they launch an all-out attack on the politician's gang. Determined to end this himself, Ramy charges at the politician, ready to fight. But the politician manages to land a powerful blow, knocking Ramy to the ground before attempting to escape. Ramy and his assistant chase after him, finally cornering him. The politician smirks and taunts Ramy's assistant, "You're quite the killer, aren't you?" Give him a proper beating. The assistant is hesitant, but before the fight can escalate, Ramy's alternate personality emerges again, taking control of his body. The next day, the leader of the drug cartel is driving when she hears the news that the politician has been arrested. Meanwhile, Detective Sarah continues her investigation into the cartel, hoping to track down their whereabouts. As for Ramy, he heads to the ATM to withdraw money, only to discover that his account is completely empty. This must be a mistake, he tells himself, trying again and again. After multiple failed attempts, he visits the bank, where the manager informs him that he had donated all his money. "I donated all my money?" Ramy is in shock. "Who the hell did this?" Feeling utterly hopeless, Ramy goes to the top of a building, contemplating jumping. Just as he is about to take the leap, his alter ego appears at the perfect moment. "Don't be stupid. It's just money. That's not a reason to do this," the madman tells him. Ramy hesitates, and before he can react, his alter ego disappears. Meanwhile, Sarah visits the politician in prison, attempting to extract information about the drug cartel. However, he refuses to speak, providing no useful leads. At the same time, Ramy meets with someone unknown from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. The next day, an assassin stabs the politician in the stomach while he's in prison. Sarah, realizing that they can't afford to let him die before he confesses, rushes to transfer him out of prison. However, en route, a large truck crashes into the police van, an obvious setup meant to help the politician escape. But things don't go as planned. Instead of escaping, the politician is captured, and Sarah is blamed for orchestrating the crash to kill him. She is arrested. Ramy watches the entire situation unfold. His alter ego appears once again, urging him, "Sarah is innocent. Get her out of this by any means necessary. If you do, I'll disappear from your life forever." Ramy realizes this is his chance to rid himself of his split personality once and for all. Meanwhile, the drug cartel is ramping up its operations, flooding the streets with their merchandise. Ramy and his assistant intensify their search, trying to locate the cartel's main base. The next day, Ty is officially transferred to the anti-corruption unit and becomes part of Ramy's team. When Ramy finds out, he exclaims, "Great, just what I needed." That night, Sarah returns home but is horrified to find the police surrounding her apartment. She calls Ramy in a panic and rushes inside, only to discover that the police have found a bag full of cash and drugs in her home. She has been framed. Ramy arrives, and Sarah, crying, pleads with him, "I swear this isn't mine. Someone is trying to set me up." Ramy sighs, "I'm sorry, but I have to arrest you until I can prove your innocence." He cuffs her but whispers, "Trust me." Unbeknownst to them, someone is watching and listening. Ramy takes Sarah to the station and interrogates her, even though he already knows she's innocent. "Don't worry, I already know who's behind this," he reassures her. The next day, Ramy meets with the person responsible for Sarah's case, but the man refuses to release her. Ramy storms out. Meanwhile, Ramy's assistant nervously approaches him, wanting to say something but hesitating. Before he can speak, Ramy receives a call from Ty. An ambulance arrived at the prison before the accident happened, Ty says. That means the whole thing was premeditated. Determined to get to the bottom of this, Ty and Ramy start tracking down the ambulance, but they hit a dead end. That night, Ramy's alter ego leads him to an underground garage. Before Ramy can react, a group of men attacks him, trying to kill him. But once again, his mad persona takes over, single-handedly taking down every attacker. Just as Ramy begins to enjoy his victory, a man sneaks up behind him and injects him with a sedative. He collapses instantly. When he regains consciousness, he is tied up. The kidnappers contact Sarah, informing her that Ramy has been taken. Ramy soon realizes that the cartel is behind his abduction. Their leader threatens him, warning, "Stay out of this case or I'll kill your brother." With no other choice, Ramy is forced to back off. The next morning, Ramy is at work when his alter ego appears again, furious. "Are you just going to sit there and do nothing? Arrest these criminals." "I can't do anything," Ramy responds bitterly. "No," the madman counters. "You have all the power." He then punches Ramy, knocking some sense into him. Determined, Ramy visits Sarah in prison to check on her. She tells him, "I need to tell you something important. I think my boss is the one who killed his own assistant." Ramy is stunned. "I told you from the start, but you didn't believe me." Determined to confirm the truth, Ramy investigates and finds solid proof. Sarah's boss did in fact kill his own assistant. Ramy's alter ego appears again. "So what's your next move?" "We won't do it alone," Ramy replies. "We'll do it together." He and his other self finally unite, agreeing to take down the criminals once and for all. At the same time, Ty tracks down a crucial lead and heads to the cartel's hideout, disguised in a strange outfit. He watches as a cartel member exchanges cash for drugs, but before he can leave, the gang members grow suspicious. "I think we've seen you before," one of them says. "No, you must be mistaken," Ty insists. But they don't buy it. The gang surrounds him, beats him up, and takes everything he has. Just as they are about to kill him, another person appears and distracts them, allowing Ty to escape. He runs for his life, and the cartel members chase after him, but he manages to evade them. Meanwhile, Ramy takes the survivor of the gang attack to his psychiatrist, suspecting that he is mentally unstable. He is also trying to figure out who really killed the commander's assistant. However, the man suffers a nervous breakdown, forcing the doctor to sedate him. Back in prison, Sarah is cornered by 3 female inmates and a male guard. They begin beating her mercilessly, 3 against 1. She fights back but is overwhelmed. The next day, Ty searches for the one piece of evidence that can prove Sarah's innocence, her missing ID badge. When he finally finds it, he rushes to the police station and presents it as proof. Sarah is cleared of all charges and released from prison. As she steps outside, Ramy is there, waiting for her. She smiles, relieved to see him. However, Ramy's alter ego reappears, glaring at Sarah as if he hates her. Ramy sits with Sarah and tells her the shocking truth. Her boss framed her for drug possession and is actually one of the cartel's biggest partners. He's the real criminal. After hearing Ramy's words, Sarah storms into her boss's office, visibly shaken. "I'm shocked by you and your actions," she says. "You're behind everything happening here? I used to respect you. I saw you as a father figure. But your days are numbered. I swear, I will arrest you." With that, she leaves. Meanwhile, the corrupt commander receives a call from the drug cartel's leader. She warns him, "Ramy has solid evidence against you. He's going to take you down." Without hesitation, the commander orders his gang to kidnap Sarah. Later, Ramy confronts the commander, showing him the evidence that exposes his crimes. "Your time is up," Ramy declares, but the commander smirks. "I have Sarah. She's about to die. Go save her if you can." Shocked, Ramy rushes to rescue her. He tracks her down to a large transport truck, but inside, Sarah is unconscious. The truck is filled with gas. Before Ramy can act, one of the gang members locks them both inside and drives off. The gas is suffocating them, and it looks like they won't make it. But Ramy and his alter ego work together, managing to break the door open and escape at the last moment. Once free, Ramy and Sarah capture the truck's driver and lock him inside. Then, Ramy hijacks the truck and speeds toward the gang's hideout. As he approaches, he sees them gathered in the street. Without slowing down, he plows straight toward them. The gang members panic, scattering in fear. Police sirens blare as law enforcement arrives, arresting the criminals. The next day, all the officers gather at the station for a meeting. Sarah tells them that the new cartel leader, Andy, is the same man Ramy had initially suspected. He was working with the corrupt commander all along. Ramy agrees with her and heads to the prison to question the murderer of the commander's assistant. During interrogation, the suspect refuses to give them any useful information. Sarah then shows him a photo, asking him to identify any cartel members. Hesitantly, he points to Andy. Everyone is stunned, but now they have confirmation. The next day, Ramy and his alter ego head to the cartel's hideout to arrest Andy. They spot the gang loading drugs into a vehicle. Watching from a distance, Ramy's alter ego suggests, "Let's just hide inside the truck." Ramy hesitates but ultimately agrees. As they hide inside, someone locks the truck and drives off, taking them along. Ramy, furious, turns to his alter ego. "This is your fault." He then realizes that the boxes inside the truck are filled with drugs, disguised as bottled water. Acting quickly, Ramy contacts the police, leading to a bust where the gang is caught red-handed. However, the cartel fights back, leading to a brawl. Andy, realizing the situation is dire, attacks Ramy's assistant, punching him hard in the stomach. But the injury is minor. Ramy arrives just in time to intervene. When Ramy confronts Andy, instead of fighting, Andy shockingly surrenders without resistance. The police take him in, but during questioning, Andy remains silent, staring at Ramy coldly. Suddenly, Andy attempts suicide by slashing his wrists. The officers intervene just in time. The corrupt commander then steps in, insisting, "Let him go. I'll handle him personally." The police reluctantly agree. As the commander takes Andy away, Ramy grabs him. "I know what you're doing," he warns. The commander smirks. "You'll never have anything on me." Later, the commander meets with the cartel leader. She glares at him. "You've ruined everything. Since the day I met you, I knew you were bad luck. Now all our money is gone and my personal assistant has been arrested." She demands that they steal back the confiscated drugs. To save himself, the commander agrees. Meanwhile, Sarah is trailing the commander, determined to expose him. She calls Ramy, urging him to meet her. At the same time, the commander successfully steals the drugs from police storage and tries to flee in his car. But just as he's about to escape, Sarah blocks his path with her car, aiming her gun at him. "Step out of the vehicle," she orders. The commander laughs. "Are you threatening me?" Suddenly, another officer sneaks up behind Sarah, pointing a gun at her. The commander seizes the officer's gun and places it against Sarah's head. "Drop your weapon," he commands. Left with no choice, Sarah complies. At that moment, Ramy arrives. The commander releases the officer and jumps into his car, speeding away. Ramy chases after him, but the commander manages to escape. Later, the commander arrives at the gang's meeting spot to deliver the stolen drugs. However, sensing a betrayal, he decides to strike first. Before they can kill him, he sets the entire drug supply on fire, betraying the cartel. The police arrive, arresting the new drug cartel members. As for the commander, he hides in the same location where he had killed his assistant. But Ramy and his assistant track him down. A gunfight ensues, and the commander is seconds away from killing Ramy, until Sarah arrives just in time, shooting him. Wounded, the commander collapses as Ramy seizes all his money and throws it into the air. The commander screams in frustration as Sarah slaps handcuffs on him. Suddenly, Ramy's alter ego appears again. "Where were you? I almost died!" Ramy yells. The madman smirks. "I was with you the whole time. I wanted you to stand on your own." Later, Ramy takes Sarah home. Before going inside, she tells him, "Come up with me. I'll patch up your wound." Ramy agrees, following her inside, where she carefully tends to his injuries. "Thank you for everything," she says sincerely. The next day, Ramy personally interrogates the commander. "You put us through hell this entire series," he remarks. Meanwhile, Ty gifts his assistant a new wallet, catching him off guard with the thoughtful gesture. That evening, Ramy visits his mother at her restaurant. As they eat together, she jokingly says, "What do you think? Should I quit my job and work for you instead?" His brother, laughing, agrees, "It's better than your current job." The next day, while prisoners are being transported, Andy kills the officers in the vehicle and escapes. Later, Ramy's superior calls him in, suggesting that he seek professional help for his hallucinations. Ramy reluctantly agrees and visits a psychiatrist, but something about the doctor feels off. The doctor asks Ramy to talk about his childhood, but Ramy doesn't remember much, except that his father used to beat him mercilessly. After the session, Ramy drives home, lost in thought. Suddenly, his alter ego appears beside him. "What's on your mind?" "Damn it, you scared me," Ramy mutters. The next morning, an unfamiliar girl enters the police station. "My father is dead," she announces before collapsing. When Ramy hears about the case, he calls Sarah and takes her to the crime scene. Upon arrival, they find the man's body. Sarah looks around uneasily. Something about this place is off. She returns to the station and interrogates the girl, discovering that she's a drug addict. Meanwhile, Ramy stands outside the station when he gets a call. It's from the doctor at the orphanage, asking him to continue his treatment, but Ramy brushes him off, saying he's too busy with a case. The next day, Ramy investigates further and finds security footage that shocks him. The girl was involved in the murder. Not only that, but she was also the one who filmed it. At the hospital, the girl remains in a sedated state due to trauma. Ramy digs into her background and discovers that her life is a complete mess. She constantly runs away from home, her family is in ruins, and her mental state is deteriorating. He also learns that the orphanage doctor has a connection to her. Suspicious, Ramy starts to believe that the doctor might be manipulating her. Ramy confronts the doctor, saying, "Someone's messing with these kids' heads, making them do things. I want to know who." The doctor plays innocent. "What are you implying?" Ramy narrows his eyes. "Tell me about your relationship with the victim's daughter. You met her the day of the murder. What did you say to her?" The doctor remains silent. The next day, the girl finally wakes up. Ramy visits her, hoping to get answers, but she refuses to speak. No matter what he says, she won't utter a single word. Frustrated by the girl's silence, Ramy eventually leaves. Later, he decides to visit his old childhood home. As he steps inside, painful memories come rushing back. His father's beatings, his childhood suffering. He envisions his younger self running, only to find himself chasing after that very same younger version. He realizes that even as a child, he had a split personality. Suddenly, he finds himself inside a vast corridor filled with countless locked doors, a metaphor for his subconscious mind. He approaches one door, ready to open it, but his alter ego appears, stopping him. "I told you not to go there," the madman warns, but Ramy insists. As he forces the door open, he begins to remember, but nothing makes sense. His memories are fragmented. He has no clear recollection of his childhood beyond the pain. Overwhelmed, he snaps back to reality. Meanwhile, the girl who escaped from the hospital is still missing. Ramy searches for her but finds nothing. Just as he's about to call the doctor calls him first. "Who do you think is really manipulating these children?" he asks cryptically before hanging up. At that moment, Ramy spots the missing girl in front of him. Before he can react, she lunges at him with a knife. Just in time, a young man named Shin intervenes, saving Ramy. Later, Ramy tracks the girl to her home, but to his horror, he finds her harming herself. He tries to stop her, but it's too late. She is already severely wounded. The next day, Ramy visits the hospital to check on the doctor, who has recovered and been discharged. He takes the doctor aside. "Who is the next victim?" he demands. The doctor gives him an address linked to a secret online network. Ramy logs into the network using the credentials he received. To his shock, a masked figure appears on the screen and greets him by his real name. Confused, Ramy wonders how they know his identity. He places his hand on his forehead and suddenly finds himself back in the eerie corridor inside his mind. Determined, Ramy starts searching police records for a case that happened on February 10th, the day his father died. Sarah watches him skeptically. "You're crazy for digging up a case from 20 years ago," she says. But eventually, she gives in and helps him search. The next morning, Ramy stands on the orphanage rooftop, lost in thought. That's when he notices a girl standing across from him. There's something strange about her. Her behavior is unnatural. At the same time, Tai and his partner visit Shin for further questioning, but when they arrive at his home, they find Shin's brother lying in a pool of blood, murdered. Shin sits across from the body, motionless. Tai is shocked and immediately calls Ramy. Ramy arrives at the police station where Shin is being questioned. However, all of Shin's responses are cryptic and filled with despair. Nothing he says makes sense. Frustrated, Tai reviews the security footage. Shin was at a restaurant when his brother was killed. he reveals. With no evidence against Shin, Ramy and Tai let him go. The next day, Tai secretly follows Shin, hoping he'll lead them to a clue, but Shin notices he's being followed and calls him out. At the same time, Ramy continues observing the mysterious girl from the rooftop. Her actions are still strange. Suspicious, he asks Tai to gather information on her. Later, Ramy and Tai visit the orphanage's rooftop together. Tai tells him, she's been volunteering here for years. She's 23. Ramy stares at the ground, noticing something odd. He suspects something is hidden below. He and Tai lift a drain cover and are horrified to discover a human skeleton. They take the remains to the forensics lab for identification. Meanwhile, the girl attempts to harm herself. The police intervene just in time and place her under supervision. Ramy waits outside as she is taken in. Tai approaches him. We took a sample from her. If it matches the skeleton, we'll know who it belongs to. And if the remains are hers, it means something far more terrifying is going on. Late at night, Shin rides his motorcycle and attacks a young man walking down the street. However, the man fights back, giving Shin a serious beating. Just as the situation escalates, Ramy arrives in time to intervene. He strikes the young man, who then flees. But Shin, lost in madness, begins rambling about suffering and tragedy. Holding a knife, he suddenly stabs Ramy. In that moment, Ramy experiences a series of strange, fragmented memories from his childhood. He sees his childhood friend harming his father and is shocked by what he's witnessing. Once again, the endless corridor of locked doors appears before him in his mind. He finds himself lost in it. His alter ego appears, and for the first time, helps him. It wasn't you who caused what happened to your father, the alter ego tells him. Suddenly, Ramy wakes up in a hospital bed. Detective Sarah is beside him. You were stabbed in the stomach, but you're okay now, she says. After a few days of recovery, Ramy is discharged. The moment he steps outside, his alter ego appears. Determined to find the real culprit, Ramy starts investigating again. His alter ego, however, is convinced that the orphanage doctor is responsible and wants to kill him. Ramy and his alter ego visit the doctor together. The doctor immediately recognizes the second personality. Let's all sit down and talk, he suggests. As they converse, the doctor deliberately provokes the alter ego, pushing him to the edge. The alter ego snaps and attacks him. At the last moment, Ramy stops him and pulls him away. They leave before things escalate further. That night, Ramy continues his investigation into the drug cartel. He successfully tracks down their base and captures them red-handed, leading to their arrest. Detective Sarah interrogates the cartel leader while Ramy uncovers solid proof linking the doctor to the criminal activities. He realizes the doctor has been manipulating children into becoming criminals. Ramy personally arrests the doctor and questions him. Why did you turn these kids into criminals? You're the reason all of this happened. The doctor smirks. Did I ever tell anyone to kill? If someone harms another, that's their own crime, not mine. He plays mind games with Ramy, twisting the situation. Eventually, Ramy storms out in frustration. Later, Ramy confides in Sarah, revealing the truth about his split personality, but she refuses to believe him. Why didn't you tell me before? She yells. Angry and overwhelmed, she walks away. Ramy returns home in a fit of rage, smashing everything in sight. Meanwhile, the doctor visits Ramy's mother. Manipulating her, he convinces her that Ramy is mentally unstable. He tricks her into taking a knife with Ramy's fingerprints on it, convincing her that Ramy killed his own father. His mother, suffering from memory issues, believes him. The doctor then calls the police, reporting that the murder weapon is at Ramy's house and framing him for his father's death. Ramy rushes to his mother's house. What happened? He asks. Tears well up in her eyes. My memories are coming back, but you didn't hurt anyone. Realizing the doctor had been there, Ramy is furious. He storms into the doctor's office and grabs him. You wanted to throw me in prison? Now I'll be the one throwing you in. Overcome with rage, Ramy slaps the doctor across the face and beats him. A crowd gathers, pulling Ramy away. A police officer arrives and tells Ramy, "We found a knife in your house. You're under arrest." Ramy is stunned, unable to say a word. The doctor watches smugly, grinning. As he is being taken away, the doctor suddenly grabs a gun from an officer's holster and aims to shoot. But at the last second, Ramy's alter ego intervenes, pushing the gun upwards. The police take control of the situation and transfer Ramy to a psychiatric hospital. Ramy spends 4 months locked inside. I'm not crazy, He keeps insisting. He tries to escape multiple times, but his alter ego watches over him, silently waiting. Ramy tries to find a way out, but nothing works. One day, he discovers a stash of drugs in the director's office and realizes that instead of giving patients sedatives, the hospital has been supplying them with illegal substances. Using this knowledge, he blackmails the director. "Let me out, and I won't expose your operation." Fearful of being caught, she agrees. As they transport Ramy in an ambulance, the doctor accompanying him receives a message: kill him, get rid of him. Sensing danger, Ramy's alter ego warns him, "They're going to kill you. Move." Without hesitation, Ramy attacks the doctor with the help of his alter ego and manages to escape. Ramy reunites with his colleagues and finally tells them everything about his split personality. Though they listen, deep down, they think he has completely lost his mind. They humor him, but no one truly believes him. The next day, Ramy goes to see his psychiatrist, only to find the doctor lying dead on the floor. Shocked, he quickly reports it and calls for an ambulance. Later, he visits his mother, only to find that her Alzheimer's has worsened. She no longer recognizes him. Ramy desperately tries to remind her who he is, speaking to her gently and looking into her eyes. After several failed attempts, something clicks, and she finally remembers. Tears fill her eyes as she embraces him. Meanwhile, the corrupt doctor who had manipulated Shin has completely taken control of his mind. He drags Shin to an abandoned house and sets it on fire. Ramy's alter ego senses something is wrong and leads him to the burning house. Outside, they find the doctor watching as Shin cries out inside the flames. Ramy is torn. Should he capture the doctor or save Shin? Without hesitation, he and his alter ego rush into the fire. The flames nearly consume them, but in a last effort, they manage to escape, barely alive. Afterward, Ramy confronts the doctor. "There's no escape for you now. You will be arrested." Desperate, the doctor punches Ramy in the face, and they engage in a brutal fight. They beat each other mercilessly until they are both covered in blood. Eventually, the doctor collapses, unconscious. Suddenly, Ramy finds himself in the corridor of his mind again. This time, his alter ego stands before him, but something feels different. "This is our final goodbye," his alter ego says. Ramy, shocked, pleads, "Don't leave me. I've gotten used to you being here." "You have to be strong. Face everything on your own," the alter ego replies. Ramy tries to run after him, but it's too late. His other self fades away. Feeling empty, Ramy sits on the ground and cries. Just before vanishing completely, the alter ego embraces him. "I'm not leaving you. I'll always be a part of you, my friend." Suddenly, Ramy wakes up in the hospital, surrounded by his friends. They reassure him that he is okay. The next day, Ramy goes to the police station and calls for a meeting. Everyone assumes he is about to talk about his latest achievements. Instead, he stands before them and says, "I called this meeting to submit my resignation." He thanks them for their support, then leaves. Ramy begins a new life, working at his mother's restaurant alongside his brother. He even hires Shin to work with them. Meanwhile, the leader of the drug cartel visits the corrupt doctor in prison, only to ensure that it's his last day alive. With his death, all of his crimes finally come to an end. Ramy finds peace, living with his family and friends. His alter ego is gone, but he still feels his presence, knowing that a part of him will always remain. For the first time in a long time, he feels truly free. Here is the end of the drama. Subscribe for more videos like this one, and don't forget to like the video. Thanks for watching.